There's something strange in your neighborhood. He's right there.
What? Welcome to the Cinefanatics. My name is Robert Adams.
I'm Chris Adams.
And this is a spoiler-free review for Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. I keep wanting to call it Fallen Kingdom. Like every time I'm typing up like the hashtags on social media, follow us at the Cinefanatics, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all those places. I was trying to type up Ghostbusters and my fingers are wanting to do Fallen Kingdom. I was like, wait, no, that's another terrible movie in a long-standing franchise.
Oh, Rise of the Ghosts is the next movie.
Yeah, that wouldn't be surprising. So we got some thoughts about this. Again, spoiler-free.
We're going to do as best as we can here.
Let's start off by saying this is not an awful movie.
No.
At all.
No, it's not bad.
I feel like we have a really good example of an awful movie this year. This is not it.
Yeah.
This is far from it. So let's preface this review with that. So if you're thinking we're just here to crap all over this movie, we're not doing that. There are some negatives, and we'll get to those. Let's talk about some positives. I love the fact that we're back in New York. That was the thing I did not like about Afterlife, and I love the fact that we're back in New York in this one. And it feels like you're back home. After you've been on a long trip, you've been away, you finally get to come home, and you're like,
he wants some of that hook and ladder goodness.
Damn right. Number 8, hook and ladder, the Ocho. But yeah, it felt good to be back in New York.
There's nothing like hearing that meow, meow, through the streets of New York.
Yeah.
That's my best impression of the Ecto one. Without
like making some nasty sound that's gonna not come out very well in the edit.
I didn't. My vantage point, I don't necessarily care as much where it's at. Give me a nice, fun Ghostbusters movie. But I do understand your point after having watched it now, having seen Afterlife, and obviously having seen the other Ghostbusters movies. Now feeling like, okay, yeah, there is something to New York kind of being a character in these movies as well. I know a lot of people always say that a location is a character in the movie, but it is true to a degree. I mean, you had the first movie with the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man walking around. The second movie, you had the Statue of Liberty walking around. This movie, you have a big, tall dude with horns walking around, sort of.
And a skybeam.
And
Return of the Skybeam. Yay!
We're not getting to the negatives yet.
Hey, I love Skybeams.
Anyway, Skybeams are the Nickelback of movie tropes. Anyways.
This is how you remind me of every other movie I've seen.
Yes. Wow. Okay. But yeah, there is something to it being back in New York. We've now gotten used to these characters. They've appeared already. You know, the new characters in the movie, the whole Spengler family with,
which I'm still kind of iffy on,
Mr. Gruberson. And now we've gotten used to them. We've got them again in this movie, and everyone's seems to be happy to be working on a Ghostbusters movie. I will say, going through the cast real quick, love Paul Rudd, McKenna Grace, a star like usual. She's doing great. I feel like Carrie Coons and Finn Wolfhard they're both there.
They were both kind of sidelined in this. And what's funny is going back and rewatching Afterlife, I really liked Carrie Coon.
Yeah. And
I want to see more of her. I know she's been in a lot of movies and she just was playing a character that may not be that noticeable. Wasn't she Ben Affleck's sister in Gone Girl, I believe? Something like that?
Yes, I think so, yeah.
So, there's
someone
movies...
in the comments will correct us if we're wrong.
No, it is.
Okay.
I posed that as a question, but I actually
Then
knew.
Don't you even think about it.
But it's those, these are movies I've seen before, I just didn't know she was in them, so go back and rewatch those.
But yeah, and then... everyone else is present as well. Kumail Nanjiani having a much bigger role in the movie than I thought he was going to.
Yeah, I could have sworn during the reaction you were like, and we just saw the entirety of his role of this movie right here in the trailer. Nope.
We didn't see anything else from the trailer other than him bringing something funky to Ray.
Yeah.
And going, here's something. You're going to like this. And I was thinking like, oh, his job in the movie is just to show up and kind of be the catalyst to get things started.
He's bringing in the spherical lament configuration,
basically. And then of course you've got like the OG Bustin' crew,
which I was really happy to see Annie Potts, Janine Melnitz as like an active part of the crew, kind of filling in that hole left by Egon and Harold Ramis.
So this brings me to my highlight of the movie. I think my highlight was actually Ray. Ray Stantz was my highlight in the movie because I feel like he was the most. It was kind of between him and Winston. The two of them together felt like the most.
They were holding everything together.
This is where we belong. This is what is needed. This is what we've all needed on this planet that we've all been missing. Is a nice throwback to the 80s with characters who are still living their lives, enjoying who they are and what they did back in those days. And it's just, there's a heartwarming element to the two of them.
And the two of them actually have conversations somewhat similar to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were like the heart of the movie for the most part.
But yeah, there was these moments where Dan Aykroyd has this smile on his face that I was like, yeah, I love it.
He loves being back here.
I'm happy for him. Let's go, Ray.
Yeah, which is part of the reason why him and Reitman founded that Ghost Corpse production company. So if you've noticed since the 2016 Ghostbusters, there's been this Ghost Corpse production logo at the beginning of all three Ghostbusters movies that have come out since then. Mm-hmm. And it's like they have their own production company now. Yeah. And yeah, it's Reitman and Dan Aykroyd together that run that, with the idea initially that they were going to spin this off into not only Ghostbusters movies, but go back to TV shows, cartoons, books. Who knows? They're going to flesh out an entire Ghostbusters universe here. So
we'll see.
We'll see if that still develops. Is there a chance that they may eventually at some point rope the 2016 Ghostbusters back into it? Maybe. I don't know how, but
to the chagrin of some people.
You know what? Ghostbusters hasn't done a multiverse yet, so
there you go.
There's how we do it.
We did a Skybeam.
It did Skybeam. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, it's Ghostbusters. It's fun. There's moments in this movie that are definitely homages, whatever, to the original. Which they weren't so much in your face, so I did appreciate the few of them there were. There wasn't a lot. In fact, there was only one that was like a big standout throwback to the original Ghostbusters, and I think it was fine. I enjoyed it. So
yeah.
Otherwise, it's just like little bits of dialogue and stuff. It's fun. It's great, but
for me, I've been having a hard time since coming out of the theater and before sitting down to do this review, trying to wrap my head around what it is about this movie that just isn't working for me. And you'll notice a lot of people online are saying it's a mess. And I think that's a very simplified way of stating it. The way I describe it is this movie is filled with a bunch of individual scenes that all are telling a piece of the story that is needed, but they feel so disconnected from each other. Like over here, you've got two characters talking about something, and then you come over here to these two characters, and then you come over here to these two characters, and then maybe we're back at these two characters, but then there's these other characters. And it just kind of feels like that we're kind of jumping around in places without there being fluidity to it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's just my personal viewpoint on it or if that is actually something where it's there might have been an issue in the translation of script to screen. Because I feel like because of that issue, there's a thinness to a lot of the characters too. There's not a whole lot of, besides what I've already explained about with Ray and Winston, there wasn't a whole lot of meat in general for characters to latch onto. Obviously, Phoebe has a really good, arc in this movie, but
that's roughly it.
She's about it.
Everyone else is just playing by the numbers throughout the movie.
Yeah, it's a color by numbers for everybody else. And there's a little bleep of an emotional thing for Paul Rudd, for his character, but
so from my watching of the movie, the way I was noticing it is, first of all, it's more than halfway through this movie before we really start to get into the thick of what is the actual story of this movie? Up until then, we are being fed different forms of exposition dumps. Like it starts off with, hey, remember all those people we hung out with in Oklahoma? Well, here they are in New York. Let's catch up with them in New York. Here's all that exposition. And then we get into the legal issues, the stuff that you've seen in the trailer with like Mayor Peck, and everything surrounding that. There's all that legal exposition dump. And then we finally get into the back lore of the evil being that's the main villain of this movie and all of that exposition dump. And in the meantime, we're having like random characters having random interactions and experiences. Phoebe has this interaction with a ghost, and then you've got everything with Kumail Nanjiani's character. We briefly go see Patton Oswalt's character, and like all of these are little bit of things that are a part of these exposition dumps, or they're like little it's stuff that transitions between them. And then you get to the third act with the final fight with the villain, and it just feels like everything was just like rushed.
Yeah, because like the whole movie's called Frozen Empire, and the Frozen Empire doesn't show up until like 20 minutes until the movie's over.
Yeah. So, yeah, everything like, which was funny because the trailers started with the freezing storm coming in New York and Coney Island and everything freezing.
The first trailer basically showed off what takes place
in the last 20
at the start of 30 minutes to 35 minutes till the end of the movie.
Yeah,
essentially.
So you had all of this build up from the trailers, and we don't see that until more than halfway through the movie. Way more than halfway through the movie.
In my mind, the way it should have gone was that everything we saw, like trailer and everything, happens towards the beginning of the movie. We do the brief catch up with everybody. We probably get rid of the whole necessity of like, oh, we don't want Ghostbusters around it, whatever the whole thing with the mayor was. You stick with the reintroduce the characters, and then we jump straight into what's going on with the main bad guy ghost person, and that runs through the bulk of the rest of the movie, where we are now dealing with Ghostbusters who have to figure out and navigate New York being frozen over for the bulk of the movie. But for some reason, they did a movie before getting to that part.
For a quick comparison, the original Ghostbusters movie, that movie throughout the entire movie the audience is being set up with ghosts do exist. In the meantime, we're also seeing the specific ghosts in, like, say, Dana's apartment. Ghostbusters 2, we've got the pink slime in the sewer that causes, like, negative feelings. We've got Vigo, the painting, throughout the entire movie.
Yeah.
And then this movie, it's ice, and like New York actually isn't in peril until the last 30 minutes of the movie. Until then, we're just hanging out with these characters, and something spooky may be up to no good.
To be fair, in as a counterpoint to what I just said, going back to the first movie, we did spend the bulk of that movie with Rick Moranis and Sigourney Weaver kind of running around trying to find each other, basically.
Yeah, it's like the middle of that movie, the gatekeeper and
mostly Rick
Keymaster
Moranis running around, but yeah, we didn't get the bulk of the main thread of that movie till towards the very end too.
But that being the first movie, it needed to set that up.
How it's written, it works for the first movie. It didn't work for this because with how this movie is written and what was necessitated was the entirety of the New York City needed to be frozen over, and you don't do that in the last 20 minutes and then pull out the bad guy and, you know, kind of have a very anticlimactic conclusion.
So that being said, I feel like both of us probably could agree on this. Around the middle of the movie, it just kind of slows down to a halt pretty much.
Yeah.
In that, again, it's a lot of exposition. It's roughly around when everyone is starting to figure out that something bad is happening in New York and we need to investigate this. And then it's just a whole lot of like, well, what foreign language is this? It's not, it's a dead language. Who can translate it? How do we translate it? What does this translate into? Like just, it gets a little painful there in a bit.
Yeah, and it's, you know, there's I feel like there's something they could have done, and I think again this is a situation where it's just script to screen, it doesn't translate as well, basically. That's not to say again that the movie isn't enjoyable or it's bad. It's just that there's choices that could have been made that I think could have picked up the pace a little bit. It's a pacing thing.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, I think it's a pacing issue. Again, like you could have a 2-hour movie that has a pacing issue and it feels really long, feels really slow, and it did feel long and slow in places. Again, though, rushing the back end of it really kind of makes it feel disjointed. But then, of course, you have other movies out there that exist that are 3+ hours, but they have proper good pacing, and those movies feel like they're a breeze.
Mm-hmm.
So it is possible to have a decent pace while also telling a really good story. That does exist.
Yeah. Anyways, I feel like that's pretty much most of the negative of this movie.
Yeah.
So
overall, I mean, it is still, those negatives aside, it is still a relatively enjoyable experience. It's fun. The characters are fun. It's hard to have a bad time when Paul Rudd is around.
And Bill Murray.
And
Ghostbusters.
And it is, at the end of the day, it's still Ghostbusters. It still feels like Ghostbusters. In fact, I will argue that despite those negatives, it does feel more like the original Ghostbusters to me than Afterlife did.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's mostly
because they're in New York.
I don't know if that's strictly because of the New York of it all, or if it was because of certain beats that they did take in the movie felt more like they were in line with the kind of beats that they would have taken in the first two Ghostbusters, which is weird considering that it wasn't Reitman who did this one.
No, it wasn't Ivan or Jason. It was like Gil Keenan.
Yeah. So it is kind of weird to me that there wasn't a Reitman at the helm, and yet this one feels more like the Reitmans than the one that did have the Reitman at the helm. That's not to say Afterlife was bad either. I actually really enjoyed Afterlife. In fact, I think I like Afterlife more than I liked this one. But
to each their own.
Yeah.
Buster makes me feel good. Makes me feel good.
How are we rating it?
Well, out of 10, I would probably give it a solid 6.5.
I'm gonna give it a 5.
Ooh.
Like, it's not,
I'm being generous.
Again, it's not bad, but putting it in perspective, I've already seen at least maybe 2 movies this year that are way worse. So this movie's a masterpiece compared to those.
It's got its good parts. It's got its parts. It does end up feeling very middle of the road. I give it the 6.5, a little bit higher, because I do still enjoy some of the characters and their interactions, and that kind of pushes it over the edge for me. But
yeah. Anyways, that's going to do it for this review. What were your thoughts of the movie or this review? Let us know down below in the comments. While you're down there, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button, because we're on YouTube and you got to do the YouTube things. Make sure you are following us at the Cinefanatics on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. And also you can follow me at RCA Reacts, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Letterboxd, and YouTube.com/@RCA Reacts.
Well, caveat, TikTok as long as we can.
Well, yeah.
That'll age well. You can follow me at Chris Adams MLP on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd, as well as twitch.tv/Chris Adams MLP.
Anyways, that's going to do it for this review. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Boo.
Are you okay?
You did say there was something strange in the neighborhood, right?
Yep.
Okay.